Alright, welcome back guys, my name is Myre and this is the Star Citizen monthly report from May 2021. We're a couple days late because we spent so much time editing our SCRP video, so have a look at that if you want to. But anyway, let's go ahead and check out the monthly report. So, it says here, in the month of May, SC welcomed the fleet to the Stanton System, which was an undertaking tackled by many of the teams at Cloud Imperium. But that wasn't all. Great progress was made on important features for Alpha 314 and beyond, from the Orison landing zone to the Pyro and Nyx systems. Alright, so of course Nyx is where Delamar has moved to. It's the official place for it. It's kind of gone now because they needed to make space, as it were, for Crusader and also for the Invictus celebrations. So yeah. Interesting shot, actually, of this. I don't think I've actually seen this color of the F8 Lightnings. I don't know if that's a mistake or what, but the 999 Test Squadron actually fly full red ships. Weird. Anyway, so for AI content, the AI content team focused on tech that also benefited Invictus launch week, which included polishing the tourist and tour guide behaviors, Wildline's Look IK, and completing the required female animations. They dedicated time to the mannequin fragments animation selection to ensure they correctly fit their context, and the shopkeeper gained more usables that players would expect to see in food and drink shops. They also started designing possible flow extensions to allow NPCs to serve players differently if they choose to eat in or take away. Alright, for example, this will allow food to be given to the player directly, or served on a plate and tray. So we've kind of seen some of this already with the mess hall animations and stuff way back when they first showed off the Javelin mess hall. It looks like players will be able to do so, and NPCs as well. Very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. The security guard was fully designed and prototyped. This behavior offers great gameplay opportunities in an emergent or systemic way, as it fulfills scenarios of NPCs acting as law enforcers, information providers, like the guards in Orgrimmar and World of Warcraft to tell you where to go, and gatekeepers and greeters. So here's a little video of the security AI doing just that. Let's have a look. So they're saluting you, and you can walk through. That, I suppose that's if you have the right permissions, right? And again, alright, and saluting, and you can go. Interesting, on the top left there it says total blacklisted activities. I'm guessing, okay, he nods. Is he gonna walk out the way? No, not yet, at least anyway. Okay, interesting. So exactly, so as Regard says in chat there, this will be very useful for the reputation access system that will be happening at some point. You know, like you might need a specific reputation to be able to go to a certain room to speak to a mission giver, or maybe perhaps not even just reputation itself, but perhaps also in getting to a specific mission giver, you might need to have the mission on you to go there in the first place. That's pretty cool. And you know, all these animations are really coolly, is coolly even a word? Motion captured in the same way that we always see. Okay, what is this? Guard going up to a wall, aiming downwards. Interesting. I guess just a kind of an idle looking down to see if somebody is there, walking away. Kind of like a who goes there kind of thing. Alright, so AI content also continued designing and prototyping background life for the medical room when players respawn, including the systemic janitor and NPCs using the bathroom cubicle and sleeping in the bunk beds. Alright, then for AI features. The AI feature team further developed combat, including the ability for enemy fighters to finish off their targets, AI or player, with execution animations. Alright, this involved adapting the existing stealth takedown system for use by AI and making it more data-driven so that it supports different types of takedowns with their own settings. For example, the minimum and maximum distance a takedown can be performed from, and what quadrants the attacker must be in relative to the target. Okay. For spaceships, AI features adapted the fighter combat behavior to better utilize missiles. This involves selecting the right type of number of missiles to fire so that NPCs don't exhaust all their high damage missiles on smaller targets. In group combat, this ensures that missiles are spread over a range of targets and are rationed for use throughout the fight. This leads to interesting behaviors where fighters will soften up targets with a barrage of missiles before engaging in dogfighting, firing occasional missiles at opportune moments. They also worked on the pilot security behavior to fix issues that occur when the target has surrendered or been arrested. So yeah, being able to say, I yield, and allow the NPCs to, I guess, arrest you or something is something that's supposed to happen, but I still don't necessarily know how it'll work in the game, because obviously the easy way out would be you yield, they show up, they say, all right, that's enough of you, and then you teleport to jail. But knowing Star Citizen, I don't really feel like they'll want it to just end like that. There'll likely be some sort of arrest that needs to happen, or something else like that. But who knows? So, as part of the larger security behavior, work continued on the weapons testing sub-behavior, where NPCs can improve their combat abilities by using a firing range. Firstly, a weapon has to be retrieved from the armorer, with the team updating the existing vendor and patron behaviors to support retrieval and return at the armory. For the firing range, the team had to adapt the existing targeting and firing systems to support non-agent targets. This technology will be used in the future to support the targeting of destructibles in combat. For example, the AI might need to take out a computer bank to complete a mission objective. The groundwork for targeting specific parts of the body, for example headshots, and non-human bodied agents, for example animals, was completed too. And this line is pretty big here. This technology will be used in the future to support the targeting of destructibles in combat. For example, the AI taking out a computer bank. When will AI need to take out a computer bank? So right now we have a mission where you need to take a data drive to a base, plug it in, and then protect it for some time. So maybe the AI might have what they call a mission, where the AI themselves need to come in there to shoot that to stop you from winning your mission, is how I might see this. Otherwise, the question is, how deep are they going with the virtual AI that they were talking about before? The way that they have talked about how systemic VI or virtual intelligence is supposed to be, I wouldn't be surprised if a VI would have to go to Port Olisar and then have to go to a firing range and actually train there before they level up their own shooting skills. But yeah, very interesting. Question in chat, do you think that the AI will need to take out a computer when data running is more developed? That's exactly what I think this might be. So when they talk about AI missions, these likely will be counter missions to players when they have to do something. Back when they first showcased the Clovis Darneely mission, yep, that mission, Chris on the stage said to Todd Pappy, we need people coming in to stop them, so this might be part of that. So finally, for AI features, the team further developed untrained weapons combat. They also prepared for an upcoming mocap session for untrained cover behaviors, responding to dead bodies, hostile reactions in usables, cowering, and surrendering. So these are all important features that will be necessary for when we get into a time where NPCs and armistice zones in places like Port Olisar will need to be able to function. Right now, the armistice zone in Port Olisar means no FPS combat whatsoever, but that is not the intended goal. The goal is that there will be security checkpoints where you then hand in your weapons if you do not have the right clearance, and then if you somehow still manage to get a weapon, maybe by going to the gun store and getting a weapon there instead, and then, like shooting up the place, NPCs won't just stand there the way they are right now, but they also won't be like super trained mercenaries, at least not all of them. There might be certain VI in there, like they showed us a couple weeks ago with Tony Z, that might be able to fend for themselves, but for the most part, they'll just be, human beings reacting to these things, and that's where these animations will come in. Alright, so for AI tech. So throughout May, AI tech completed and addressed feedback for the Tier 0 navigation link work. This involved making improvements to how the cached data is used during navigation links with motion warp animations, but also recomputing navigation link connection points where the navigation mesh changes in its proximity. So the nav mesh is just how AI will be able to move from A to Z. It needs to be programmed in a certain way to make it so that they can actually move about in a very natural way. Otherwise, without it, an AI wouldn't be able to go into EVA from like a landing pad in Gravity and then, go from ship to station or station to a multi-crew ship. So on the EVA side, work on NPCs transitioning from 0G into a usable and vice versa was completed, so that's exactly that. Following on this, they began developing 0G collision avoidance for NPCs, which allows them to avoid other characters, AI or player, and small objects while floating. This will use the 3D Orca that was implemented for ship AI collision avoidance. The team also added new functionality to movement requests. They're now able to replane designer paths at the end, allowing them to create loops, maybe like patrol loops and that kind of thing. Another feature worked on was Planetary Navigation. The aim is to generate navigation mesh on planets that can be used by NPCs and animals around outposts, and the first animal is going to be that Microtech one, at least the first one on the roadmap, the Boreal Stalker. This will use physics information, so each time planetary tiles are physicalized, navigation meshes will be generated too. For the Subsumption Editor tool, the team added new functionality allowing them to create or modify multiple subsumption functions in the same window. This will be beneficial to designers when writing mission scripts or behaviors, as they will have an overview of all logic in the same place. And yeah, with animals come hunting and maybe different kinds of bounty hunting, who knows? So animation. So last month, animation worked on several different life animations, including those for vendors, searching behaviors, emergency reactions when in usables, civilian reactions to threats, medical revival, guarding and security, searching bodies, and reactions to dead bodies. They also worked on the tour guide and tourist for Invictus, supported a few new vehicles, and built testing rigs for 2 creature types and a salvage weapon. So creature types is important. Right now we only know of the Boreal Stalker, which, while a creature, is still bipedal. So like it's got 2 legs and it walks around. It might, go into bear mode, who knows? But that's 2 rigs. So of course one is the Boreal Stalker. The other one might be that floating thing that we saw like way back in 2017. I wouldn't be surprised if that would pop in with it at some point. It seems like maybe an easier NPC to make than like a Yeti, but what do I know? So, art characters. So character art spent May wrapping up new assets for Horizon and began providing design with actor records and loadouts to populate the new landing zone with. The concept artists worked on civilians, vendors, and gangs for the Pyro system. So we know of 3 gangs in the Pyro system right now. The Overlords, the one that came with the subscriber flare, the Night Rovers, and the Fire Rats, I believe. So while the character artists progressed with 3 armor sets, okay, so maybe for each of those guys, and generic backpacks. So that's again for the 315, I believe now, right? So art environment. Yeah, the animal I was talking about was the Oni crab. So the landing zone team supported Invictus, closing out bugs across the various show halls. Horizon is nearing completion, with the final polish, tweak, and LOD passes remaining before sign-off. So that's So Origin is being released in a couple phases, and this is going to be like that first initial phase. I don't think this means that it's, you know, nearing completion of all of them. It might be. Who knows? And we've got an image here of, I have no idea. It looks like a garage or something for, one of those colonial outposts or something, but I have no idea. If we actually go ahead and open this image in a new tab, it says PU Henry Call Garage. So Henri is probably the name of the artist, and then yeah, so it is a colonial garage. Cool. Alright, the modular team progressed with final art on the first set of Outpost content. At a higher level, planning is ongoing to define the next set of content after the initial exploratory set is done to provide variety across the various outposts. Alongside this, the team is beginning to integrate crawl spaces into existing content. So crawl spaces, I imagine, like we currently have in the MSR, but just to make it so that it's not just the MSR that has this feature. Existing content as in what? Maybe ventilation systems in Lorville and other cities? Who knows? So, and for a few rounds of feedback, the team is close to finalizing the look of the jump point gas cloud, with particular attention being paid to the center where the actual jump point is located. The planet content team focused on planets for the Nyx system. So they say, we keep experimenting with fresh new biomes and asset packs. We want Nyx to look unique so that our most adventurous citizens get a satisfying experience exploring these new lands. And that's from the planet content team. So of course, Nyx is going to be at the very least 2 jumps away from the Stanton system where we are currently. So we have the Stanton system, and then we have the Pyro system, and we have the Stanton Pyro jump point. To get from Pyro to Nyx, you have 2 different choices. I believe you either go to Crowshaw and then to Nyx, or you go straight to Nyx. So because of that, and I think you can only go straight to Nyx if you have like a medium-sized ship. You need to go Crowshaw Nyx otherwise. So it makes sense that they want there to be a bit of a payoff with Nyx being so far away. So additionally, a new harvestable was completed that will populate Pyro, and I wonder if that is the Revenant pod, the Revenant plant even, because that is supposed to be something that you can harvest, that's going to be a commodity that needs to be harvested, because that will govern how much a particular like heat-resistant clothing is going to be available in stores. For those in Invictus, you know, when you were buying those Invictus clothes, like the Drake t-shirt and stuff, I believe that was using that same system where like, if you didn't trade enough souvenirs and AV equipment and stuff to these locations, then they wouldn't stock the Invictus gear, like the jackets and stuff. So in Montreal, the modular team finished their first locations, putting the finishing touches to New Babbage and Orison hospitals. They then moved on to further hospital locations for Lorville, so that's Maria Pure of Heart and Area 18, alongside clinics for Grimhex and various space stations. Grimhex doesn't actually have a hospital just yet, like it doesn't have a location anywhere. That'll be a whole new place in Grimhex. They're working as efficiently as possible to maximize the number of locations available once medical gameplay goes live. And I'm not sure exactly how big a hospital has to be, but you'd think maybe as many hospital rooms as are habs in a location, right? Because what happens if every single person in that area was to backspace out and die at the same time? It'd be very awkward if there was a queue. Alright, so art and ships. So the US-based team worked to complete the RSI Constellation Taurus, which moved into the releasing prep stage. Ship art focused on finishing the complicated LODs, while tech art worked through various features like timings, landing gears, and SDF shields. The release prep review is scheduled for early June before the ship moves to QA for polish and bug fixing. It is very interesting how long it's taken for the Connie Taurus to actually become a thing. A lot of people feel as if that's because they're doing some other tweaks to it, but I wouldn't hold my breath until we see this thing. So last month, work also began on the Crusader Ares, which, with the team meeting with various stakeholders to review the white box, though there are a few remaining tasks before it can be signed off. Art also moved to the gray box stage. The art and design teams supported the Invictus patch, dealing with various bugs that were important to the player experience. Towards the end of the month, the production kickoff was scheduled for the Drake Vulture, which is expected to begin in early June, so begin. Let's not get too excited. In the UK, the team worked towards the various Invictus deliverables, including getting the exterior art of the Aegis Redeemer to final art standard and creating the various themed ship paints. They also worked to prepare the Javelin, including an airlock entrance area that utilized the new docking mechanic, and the holo display in the briefing room, which was bespoke for the event, which means we won't be seeing that again. A previously mentioned and unannounced ship made great progress. Okay, so a previously mentioned unannounced ship. How do you mention something that's not announced? It just needs a final lighting pass and general polish for the interior to be wrapped up, while the exterior requires technical damage, exterior lighting, and general polish passes. Once done, it'll move to the tech arts team. Work also began on a brand new ship that'll be revealed later in the year, so probably for CitizenCon. Alongside new content, the team have people saying the 404, maybe. Who knows? Alongside new content, the team have 2 ships working their way through the gold standard process, where they incorporate the latest features and generally improve older vehicles. The Aegis Saber is nearing the end of this process, while the Retaliator is well underway, though still has a lot left to do. Work done so far included widening the doors and tight corridors to allow better AI navigation, because you really can't have 2 people side by side in the Retaliator, and repositioning the lifts and airlock in the central room. Alright, so this is the first time that gold standard passing on a ship is more than just what they did for the Gladius. So the Gladius is our first ship that's currently in gold standard. To get it there, they not only did a lot to the actual cockpit, but they made the buttons and toggles and switches like state aware, so quantum travel and stuff, like you press the button and the switch goes up. But they also physicalized and made locations on the ship for every single component that the Gladius will ever have or will have, including refueling. So the Saber is the next on the line there, so every new PTU patch that we have, so going into 3.14 for instance, you know, if you do have access to the PTU when it comes in and you have a Saber, pull one up, see what's changed, because we might be surprised. Then of course the Retaliator is going to be the first multi-crew ship going into gold standard, and this is them saying that gold standard is more than just the cockpit. They're widening corridors, and they're also changing where airlocks and stuff are. This kind of means that gold standard is something that's going to have to happen for almost every single ship. The only other ship that we know of that's currently under this gold standard process is of course the Argo Mpuv, because in-game it's currently actually changed from 312 to 313. It looks a bit sleeker, but it's not complete yet because like the part it attaches to is still the old style, whereas the main box part of it is now a bit different. The cockpit hasn't changed just yet though. So, yeah. So time was also spent on R&D looking into wear and dirt, as well as further optimizations for ship exteriors. So we got a question in chat saying, what does gold standard mean? Like, is it final state for full release? Not quite, but hopefully closer to the truth than otherwise, because otherwise they're just gonna keep building and iterating on these ships, and they need to find a place to say, okay, we're done here, let's move on. But in general, as I said before, gold standard is a couple of things. for most fighters, gold standard is, for most ships in general, gold standard is making sure that every component is physicalized. So like for instance, in the Carrack or in the MSR, you can go inside the MSR, go into the components room, find the shield generator and shoot the shield generator, do damage to it, and turn the shields off. For fighters, it's actually having those shield generators in place on the ship where you can see, maybe in the future, service and replace. Every ship needs this, not all of them do yet, and so that's part of the gold standard process. The other part of the gold standard process is just making sure that ships make sense for 2021 or whenever the game gets released or whatever, and also making the cockpits and the cockpit buttons and stuff state aware, so that they're not just random panels, but if you like look in at a panel, it will say engines and you press that button in particular to turn the engines on for the shields and everything else. It's a lot of stuff, but they just call it gold standard. Alright, so art weapons. So the weapons team continued to focus on bugs and polish for the Alpha 3.13 and 3.13.1 patches, and supported the Tumbril Nova's main cannon. Once complete, they moved to the Graycat salvage tool for the first pass rigging, using the weapon as a training asset for the rigging process. The mining gadgets white box asset was also iterated on with an early blockout before it moved on for a concept pass. So the mining gadgets are FPS items that you will slap onto a rock. We don't exactly know how big these minerals or rocks will be. Is it something you put onto something for a hand tool for mining, or something for a prospector-sized rock for mining, or even bigger? We don't really know. But these are items on top of subcomponents that you'll be able to slap onto the actual item you're working on to change its stats, to make it easier to mine. Then the Graycat salvage tool obviously is for salvage. They talked about how salvage and repairing are going to be basically opposite sides of the same coin. So once we get this salvage tool, I don't think repair is going to be too far away. Alright, so in community, they kicked off an AMA and stuff, which we actually made a video about and read for before, so check that out if you want to. And then they supported Invictus Launch Week and did a whole bunch of things, including contests. So the Microtech Metroloop race and the screenshots contest. Alright, so in engine, this is going to be a meal, I'm sure. Let's see. The physics team finalized the support of tracking floating point exceptions within physics, which began in April. As a side effect, this enabled more efficient vector code generation on the Linux server. The rest of the month was mostly spent on optimizations, including improving the mid and narrow phase of soft body collision detection. There were also several updates to signed distance fields, such as tile-based polygonization when remeshing SDFs, and optimizations in tree traversal when baking SDFs. Various updates were also made based on Alpha 3.13 telemetry, some of which made it into PU in the recent incremental patches. The remaining will be shipped in Alpha 3.14. So just changes there to SDFs, to the shields. Sign distance field as a kind of math basically for how they render the shields onto ships so that it looks like more natural, more organic, and they're just updating it. The team further progressed with the Gen 12 renderer, including submitting improvements to the Scaleform UI render path that was established last month. The render graph, which is a key component in Gen 12, received initial support for resource transition APIs, split barriers, and resource state validation, all of which are important for next-gen low-level APIs such as Vulkan and DirectX 12. The debuggability of the render graph was also updated. So I don't really know much about this apart from Gen 12, and the Gen 12 renderer is that next step in optimization of the game, and hopefully we'll see better performance across the board, but also in things like Star Marine, Arena Commander, and of course Theaters of War. So furthermore, text rendering was refactored and optimized, and support for image draw helper code was added. More pipelines were enabled by the Gen 12 by default, including tiled shading, SSR, SSDO, shadow mask generation, and scattering queries. So I don't know if this text rendering thing is in yet, but they've said they've refactored it now. All we do know is that text has changed between 3.12 and 3.13. Whether or not that's part of this refactorization, we don't really know, but yeah. Additionally, significant low-level progress was made in memory management, which involved various types of buffer and packet allocations moving to a more efficient scheme. Lastly, for the renderer, various APIs were exposed via common interfaces so higher-level code can eventually make use of them to prepare and package data in advance and offload the renderer. So just renderer optimization there. On the graphics front, hair rendering received various improvements, such as fixed shadow map generation of view-aligned strands and a new experimental scattering model for better-looking blonde hair, because blonde hair in real life is thinner than other hair types, and so it looks differently in real life, and it's a finicky thing to do. Eye shading got support for a normal plus blend map when rendering specular overlays. The eyeball texture can now also be rescaled to make shared textures better fit varying eye geometry. So with a character creator, some eyes are bigger than others, so there we go. The Volumetric Cloud system received support for density queries, so various VFX can be spawned and the game can react to the presence of clouds at given locations. Scattering query support can also be added to so transparent and forward shaded objects properly take clouds into account when rendered. The work on SDFs for efficient space skipping continued too. I really do wonder how this cloud stuff is going to look, just because other games that do clouds and do clouds well, such as Microsoft Flight Simulator, do so in a way that make the clouds visible in first person, maybe in third person to like maybe 300 meters from your point of view, and that's it. And that's where you can render things amazingly. But in Star Citizen, you're not just gonna be like, in atmosphere, but also looking at these clouds from like so many different kinds of angles. So I wonder, because of this, how will our clouds look? Will they look worse because there's so many more different kinds of variables to keep in mind? I have no idea. Alright, so the Volumetric Cloud system received support for density queries so various VFX can be spawned and the game can react to the presence of clouds at given locations. Scattering query, I think I've read this already, maybe? I have, because I'm smart. Alright, so on the core engine side, the team updated the code base to build the Clang 11. I didn't realize that they were working on Space Engineers. So time was also spent investigating the fixing some of the startup crashes people experienced in Windows 7 machines after 3.13 rollout. Additionally, some support was given to improve our anti-cheat measures. So if you guys check out the Reddit every now and then, you'll see that there are a whole bunch of, just people who are using cheat engines and stuff to make people's lives a living heck. So, yeah, we'll see if that actually... I mean, I haven't experienced them at all myself, but I've seen the video, so hopefully this will help. Alright, so features, characters, and weapons. So as part of the next iteration of Actor Status, the team worked on medical support gameplay. When complete, players will be able to equip a dedicated healing item that allows them to scan other players or NPCs to see their vitals, including per limb statuses. So right now in the game, if you get shot in the arm, your arm, on the ragdoll goes yellow and you've been shot in the arm. But now this is an item in the game for you to scan somebody else to see, hey mate, you've been shot in the arm. I know! Yeah, anyway. Significant work went into allowing this information to be displayed as an augmented reality overlay on the target player or NPC. If the player is close enough to the target character, they can use the same item to administer a combination of drugs via short-range beam, which is significantly more effective than the existing med pens and can be further enhanced by tweaking the levels of the drugs administered. So I'm thinking like a fusion of the mining gameplay that we have currently, whether maybe there might be a bar for like drug administration levels or whatever, And so yeah, med pens are now going to be like a general purpose thing. Maybe perhaps you can only use one. It might heal you a bit, and then you might not be able to do it again, or you might overdose on it, and then you might need somebody else to have a dedicated weapon, or sorry, a dedicated tool to be able to then further heal you up better. It sounds really cool. The fact that they have NPCs here in their thinking is also cool as well. I do really hope that this might, and again, we might be a bit too early doors for this, but my hope for this is that this will help with things like the 890 jump mission where you have to, like, you know, maybe go look for survivors, or even the cave missions, looking for people who aren't necessarily dead, but you might need to heal them up, and then using their new nav mesh AI they talked about earlier, then escort them out of the cave, or at least then they can do it themselves, because screw escort quests, right? Okay, so alongside this dedicated item, there will also be healing beam attachments for the multi-tool, further increasing its versatility. Both the healing item and the attachment can be used to self-heal, but only the dedicated healing item offers the user the ability to manually tweak the drug levels. So again, I wonder what this tweaking is going to be like and how detailed it is. Because, I don't know, I mean, like, I feel like it might just be like a slightly easier mining. The medpen, which is currently the only self-heal option, can now be used on other players and NPCs. Epic. So now you can use the medipen like a hypo in Star Trek. This feature was developed from the existing close combat system, as the jab works similarly to the heavy knife attack. Stay still. Moving the player forward to intercept the target. Now that we have this, I really do hope that CIG start thinking about maybe perhaps adding a third item. So we have the Medipen, we have the Oxypen. I hope that we can get like a what's the word? An anesthetic one, like in Star Trek, to, like, you know, knock out somebody. Maybe perhaps as another less than lethal thing. You walk up to them and, like, you know, go and like hypo them to sleep. That'd be really cool. Yeah, and then to help see when a player is severely injured, the feature team put the final touches to the first hurt locomotion set, so limping. This replaces the normal locomotion base assets with an entirely new set of motion captured idle and movement animations. Additional visuals are layered on top, predominantly to help communicate the hurt motion to first-person view, such as a slight lowering of equipped weapons and minor increases in head bobbing. Okay. Hopefully not too much, because head bobbing is the worst. Alright, that's really cool. And I really do hope that, so of course this is the first new locomotion system. I really do hope that we get others as well, like, just so that more so not to, like, convey health, but to convey your character. You know, right now we have the normal walking, but like maybe like a more heroic kind of walk, maybe like a more kind of skulker, kind of like a low life kind of like walk, that kind of thing would be really cool. Alright, so features, gameplay. So the US gameplay feature team spent May looking into must-fix issues for Alpha 3.13.1, as well as setting up the expo halls for Invictus. Beyond that, they worked on upcoming initiatives, including the Player Asset Manager. Last month saw the app successfully pull in all the inventory items that the player owns with a new inventory API that was delivered by the core tech team. This allows the team to asynchronously pull in data from multiple sources so that it can be displayed in the UI. Gameplay features are currently in discussion with the backend teams about allowing the player to define simple query parameters starting with item type. Okay. Meanwhile, UI design wrapped up the initial concepting for the layout of the app and worked with narrative to name it. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure what... Okay, the asset manager. So they've called the reputation manager something random, the Delphi, probably, like, you know, in reference to the Oracle of Delphi. So maybe perhaps they want to find a fancy name for the player asset manager as well. Maybe bag of holding or something. Alright, so We have much of the baseline functionality in place and will hopefully be able to wrap up the majority of our remaining work in the final month of Q2. And that's the gameplay features team. The team also progressed with the cargo refactor, another really big thing, not only for cargo haulers, but also for cargo procurers, with planning and documentation continuing throughout the month. The engineers' work on the technical design documents is ongoing as the vision for the feature has evolved to a unified inventory API, with gameplay features working alongside actor features to unify how the inventory works in a server-meshed environment. Though they have yet to begin implementation, Cargo touches on so many areas of existing core gameplay loops, so many, they need to ensure everything is properly considered. So they say we're putting a higher premium on planning out our features more thoroughly, which will only yield a sturdier foundation from which to build on. This is an ongoing effort to create a more stable environment for the players that I'm sure will agree is extremely important to maintain as we roll closer to a beta release. 100%, because right now everybody's like, hey CIG, how about you stop giving the miners and miners only, you know, like the silk glove treatment, you know, like how about you give some of us some gameplay. So yeah, by basically making cargo hauling a more solid gameplay experience, it will then allow things like delivery missions to be more solid and to be more different, and also, you know, like combat related things will also benefit from this as well, because if, let's say, cargo is physicalized, then it means that if you are doing a mission to retrieve stolen cargo, then you can retrieve even bigger boxes. If you are a player looking for other players, then you can also do stuff that way as well, you know, both be it in a lawful or an unlawful position. The team is also close to finalizing the TDDs and to plan, so the trade and development departments, and plan to begin, I believe that's what it means, at least, I think it means something else, and plan to begin work on the feature itself in June. So if anybody in chat can help me what TDDs mean, that'd be nice. So internal testing and polishing are still underway for the next dynamic event, so which we think might be the what do we call it now? The Nine Tails lockdown, which had more QA resources dedicated to it. This will allow them to find any remaining edge cases so that they can wrap up their work in the next few weeks. So, the UK-based team worked on new gameplay features, including gadgets to bring additional risk and reward to mining. Okay, so that's again the mineable attachments we talked about earlier a few minutes ago, the FPS ones. The feature code is complete and the team are working with the artists and asset development for the different models. Loot generation progressed throughout May 2, which will spawn crates at different locations throughout the universe. So we had crates before, back in 2.x, but they weren't actually items that you would then have on you. They were just like I think Radagast whiskey was one of them, also like cigars were another, but this would also be to make them something that would then go into an inventory to then sell afterwards, as opposed to just giving you money by touching them. The feature is still in code development, but is progressing well. Gameplay features hope to share more details on this in the near future. Yeah, I thought TDD meant Trade and Development Division, because that's what it means in-game, but I'm not sure exactly what that means as a feature, because this is a TDD feature, so I don't know. So features, vehicles. Last month, vehicle features polished vehicle to station docking and supported Invictus. This involved fixing various streaming related issues, such as when the Javelin streams out when it's docking. Once complete, some of the team pivoted to jump point development, which builds on existing work completed for CitizenCon 2949. They're also looking into better ways to test and collaborate on jump points with the various other teams that need to work on them. TDD stands for Technical Design Document. Thank you, Red Dawn. So yeah, so the technical design document for the stuff they talked about before. So vehicle experience and vehicle features work together to finalize features for Alpha 3.14. For this, they updated the ship HUD, missile operator mode, missile guidance, and the new power triangle system. Oh, so the power triangle is completely changing, is it? So we know that the capacitor gameplay is coming in for 3.14, but this is the first time that they've talked about the power triangle as part of this. These features just missed the Alpha 3.13 release window, so are in a good position, though they still need testing and integration with other features before release. Looking further ahead, the vehicle experience team worked on drunk flying and driving behaviors to go with the actor team's new intoxication mechanics. Interesting. Alright then. Hey, that's gonna make RP a bit interesting, hey? Alright, so graphics and VFX programming. So throughout May, the graphics and VFX programming teams made significant improvements to several systems. Work started on a window shader extension to allow views into fake interiors with support for randomized room sizes, rotations, colors, and lighting. When live, this will bring extra life to cities and space stations. I believe fake interiors include things like in the CBD, for instance, they're like trade offices and trade rooms and stuff like that. Basically, places that are not intended for players to go to, but players will still try and make their way into anyway. The render-to-texture system was modified to allow a more bespoke compositing and post-effect pipeline for the UI team, which will bring greater visual consistency and higher quality effects. RTT is already really in a good place. They used RTT in Invictus to show us when the ships were docking and when the Bengal was going to show up. It's also used in things like the refinery station to see what's going on with your refinery job, and using that tech you can see somebody else's refinery job as well. The level of detail, LOD, I wish they would do this for everything. You know, tell me what it is within the brackets. Merger system was updated so that it can be used in New Babbage and Orison to improve performance and reduce the art burden of creating super low distance LODs. Pre-streaming support was added for various game systems, such as vehicle death masks, which are basically when a vehicle explodes, just to make sure that it's not like taking up so much like, I guess, performance. It gets traded out for what it actually is to something that looks a lot like it, but without the same functionality. That's a death mask. So muzzle flashes and quantum travel. To pre-stream any textures required for particle effects before the particles are respawned. This should solve some long-standing visual bugs. The shield effects setup was reworked to enable a single effect to be used on multiple ships of varying scales, with all effects scaling appropriately. Work on the fire hazard system mentioned in previous reports continued, with May's focus on the heat management of the room system. The streaming support for gas clouds was also developed to reduce memory use and improve loading times. So, heat management is very important because, like, yes, fire is bad, right? But fire is more than just burning and damaging. It's also about going to warm up a room. If you're not equipped for the heat, you might just die because of the heat. For the Gen 12 renderer, and also I believe because this fire system is systemic, it'll also be depleting oxygen. So if you're in a ship and you have a helmet on, but you have like 12% oxygen and the fire is raging, you're gonna be in for a bad time. Then for the Gen 12 renderer, a new Vulkan extension reporting system was added so that from Alpha 3.14 onwards, the team will be able to gather data on what hardware and driver support they have for various Vulkan features. This will help them use newer features when sufficiently supported. The team also generalized the GPU to CPU readback system and ported the DX9 era texture sampling code to a modern equivalent. Lighting. So in May, the lighting team focused on ensuring the Invictus event halls were polished and optimized. Alongside this, additional polish was given to the existing docking lobbies on the R&R space stations and a new security station variant used for the Javelin docking event. There was a lot of collaboration between the environment art, lighting, SFX, and vehicle feature teams to ensure the docking experience and lighting animations were both functional and exciting. The lighting team also continued their full lighting pass on Horizon. This is the most challenging landing zone so far for the lighting team, due to the massive view distances and quantity of platforms that are approachable and landable. We're putting a lot of effort into ensuring that the lighting is well optimized without compromising on the visual quality. And here's that Voyager Bar again in Horizon. Looking pretty cool. It looks like an 890 jumps bar, really, just bigger. And, okay. It looks like the Voyager Bar might be upstairs. That's why it's all pink up there, maybe. And I have no idea what Macau is. It looks like this is like the main promenade of one of the stations. You can see a few places here. There is Stratus. There is, of course, the Voyager Bar. There's Macau. And then there's Kelto Astronautics or something. I've seen Kelto before, but I don't know what it is. And I have no idea what Macau is either. Now, Macau may or may not be something. It's probably the clothing store, because I believe a Macau or a macaw is a kind of parrot. Alright, anyway, let's hope we have our place. We do. Alright, so, narrative. The narrative team spends time supporting Invictus, including working on the character, design, and AI teams to review the tour guide and tourist behaviors and animations, along with some of the voiceover elements to help populate the event. There was also a heavy influx of items that needed names and descriptions on top of the usual development of clothes, armor, weapons, and gadgets. They continue to sync with design on the organizations that players will be able to work for, like the security people, and also the trading guys as well. These brainstorming discussions not only led to a list of new and existing companies, but also the types of missions that they could offer. The goal is to ensure that they cover the various areas of gameplay at a variety of levels for a satisfying feeling of progression. And again, right now we only have security teams and stuff, like Hurston Security, the Bounty Hunting Guild and stuff, but they want to have NPC organizations and guilds for everything. Additional work was done to create a cohesive character sheet for PU characters, featuring sections for each department. This aims to consolidate the various disciplines into a single place, where devs can see what's expected of a character from a visual standpoint, look at the script, and see what type of environment they're meant to exist in. Last month also saw the release of the second part of the Gift for Baba short story, a debate on Showdown about the cost of Invictus, a reprint of a portfolio article focusing on the Lightning Bolt Company, and another batch of new Galactopedia entries, which included the new Xi'an manufacturer, whose name I can't remember. I think Gatao or something. Alright, so props. So the props team wrapped up their pass on hospitals, producing a variety of generic high-tech props along with a few bespoke to each landing zone. They worked closely with the active features to get the medical bed working correctly, which is a complex prop with a lot of moving parts. We've seen medical beds before, but I wonder if these ones also require like the locomotion tech that they have in as well, so that they move like gurneys as well. Maybe after the gambling island, who knows? Yeah. So QA. In the UK, QA worked to get Alpha 313 tested in time for Invictus. They also worked on future dynamic events, helping the development teams with focused internal playtests to ensure they focused on as intended. Preliminary testing ramped up for Alpha 314's features too. In Frankfurt, QA continued to support the various feature teams. For AI, they tested the behaviors used throughout Invictus and the PU in general, focusing on the onboard AI and capital ship behaviors. Once released, they moved back to regular AI testing, such as weekly sanity checks, reproducing and investigating issues, and providing feedback. For the engine team, support continued for minimum spec PC stress testing along with page heap testing to catch any memory leaks. So, yeah, they've been on top of that for a bit now. Automated test cases were also created to run through the checks they need to perform efficiently. QA also continues to test DataForge, Star Wars, Excel Core, Copy Build, and the sandbox editor for the tools team. All right. Then Systemic Services and Tools. So last month, Systemic Services and Tools finished the latest version of the tools for the economy and AI simulation, working alongside community to present the latest updates in the Quantum, Quasar, and Virtual AI video. So this is the first time we've seen Systemic Services and Tools in the monthly report, so hopefully this isn't the last time and we'll see them from now on. And we went through this and we reacted to this and gave our thoughts about this video. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on YouTube. And that's just screenshots of everything. A bit of a recap of it. So first of all, Tony showed off what Quanta look like. You can see the different green elements going back and forth between the different planets, and that's essentially showing the different trade routes that NPCs, these V NPCs would have. This is apparently the Stanton System, and looking at this real quick, I'm noticing something. Well, first of all, obviously, you can see the Lagrange point stations pointed out there. But what's interesting is that some of these Lagrange stations, and I don't know if every single one of them is Lagrangian, is named something differently. Have you noticed? We have Crew L1, we have Her L3, Crew L5, so far so good. Then we have a Duster's space station. Then we have a Ninetails space station. This Ninetails space station, I believe, is actually a Lagrange station, but I'm not sure because Her L5 is really close. There's a Lowrider station, a Nova Rider station. So these are all gangs and stuff within Star Citizen and within the Stanton system in general. So I'm wondering if these are going to actually be in the game. It's not going to be too difficult to do so. It's just going to be a matter of just using their procedural tech for stations. Interesting. First time noticing that. Then of course, Tony Z showed off essentially the different types of economy within the game. You have, like, you know, first tier, which is like mining and the mining of raw materials from, let's say, a Crusader mine to a refinery, refining those goods into like the processed parts, taking those processed parts to a factory, and then taking stuff from the factories to a shop. And then those will be things that players will then be able to interact with by, you know, moving those goods back and forth, or even taking those things if they need them for whatever need. Then he talked about essentially the dynamic events that they had as well, showing the different phases and perhaps also the different things that we can expect. So including lockdown and war and shop modification as well. And yeah, stuff. So work wrapped up on the Super P cache for the next release. While new services such as the AI info and NPC creation services were iterated on. The stability of systemic services was also improved for Invictus, allowing the team to handle player concurrency without taxing the services. Finally, progress was made on server meshing, with emphasis on a new hybrid service that'll accommodate the feature's needs. So tech animation. Tech animation quarterly deliverables and long-standing initiatives progressed well throughout May. The team also invested time into R&D around their animation pipeline and exporting processes. Both are bedrocks of our team and now have many nice-to-have features that the tech animation and animation teams have discussed for a long time. Good to hear it. They spent time clearing up several animation bugs in the game, implemented animations for Invictus, and worked alongside the art team on asset skinning. Alright then, Turbulence. So throughout May, the Live Tools team performed long-due maintenance on the launcher as well as a few evolutions. They also improved the performance of the Entity Graph Performance tool and supported preparations for Invictus, providing a new iteration of the Warmer tool that helps prepare the servers for high concurrency. The Game Services team supported The Game Services team supported the release of Alpha 3.13.1, fixing issues related to persistence in long-term persistence, as well as modifying entity naming for the M50 ship to fix an issue where they weren't appearing. The team also worked on documentation and handed over the fleet management and config services to publishing. However, most of the team's capacity was focused on server meshing and will be for the foreseeable future. Good to hear it. So the Turbulent web team worked extensively on the promotions and web pages for Invictus, the Tumbrel Nova, and of course the Crusader Hercules. And there's that image again from the top. Alright, so vehicle tech. So alongside fixing Invictus-related bugs for the Alpha 3.13.1 release, the vehicle tech team put the finishing touches on the vehicle radar/scanning experience, getting the UI-centric improvements integrated into the codebase to ensure smooth delivery for Alpha 3.14. Early in the month, they polished the Nova tank experience, and we're pleased to see that the community is enjoying this new gameplay experience. I think it's one of the cleanest releases for any ship or any vehicle so far. They also ensured that various ship landing gears worked correctly, as there are various instances when their states must be persistent, including when in shops, streaming in and out during cinematics, and when docked within other vehicles. So cinematics mean for Squadron 42, of course. So finally, improvements were made to the door, elevator, and control panel tools. These updates give finer control over multiple doors and ensure that the interior and exterior control panels communicate with each other. Looking forward to seeing this, especially with the not the MSR, but yeah, the MSR too, but with the new Starlifter as well. Okay, so VFX. Last month, as well as general bug fixing and polish for the Alpha 3.13.1, the team put the finishing touches to the Nova and Hercules and tidied up the Bengals thruster and weapon effects for its live debut at Invictus. It's been wonderful to see these vehicles out in the wild, says the VFX team. They also made a start on Orizin's effects, including falling and blowing cherry blossoms, water features, and holographic displays. Work kicked off on the medical healing beam effects, and the vehicle radar ping effects were finished. About the medical healing beam, it's very interesting that even though it's a beam, the lore team seemed to have already said, well, it looks like a beam, but you're actually transmitting drugs or something. The VFX artists continued to develop fire hazards, specifically focusing on visualizing how different types of propagation might look in a futuristic spaceship. For example, should they burn the same way a wooden hut would? Well, maybe if they are wooden elements. Then finally, with the much anticipated particle lighting system added into the game builds, the artists began sweeping through all existing effects to allow them to take advantage of the new lighting settings. Alright, so that's that for the roadmap, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I do apologize for running over some words towards the end, but it is now 30 degrees Celsius in this room. Man is dying. But yeah, we'll see you guys next month, hopefully, for the next monthly report. We don't really cover this Squadron 42 one because it's more or less the same stuff, and I'll be repeating myself. But yeah, maybe if you also want to see me read that, then hit me up in the comments, say, hey Myre, this is cool, but what about the Squadron 42 one? And then if there's enough peer pressure, I'll do it. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching, either live on Twitch or later on YouTube, because these will generally go there in case you missed any of it. I've been Myre, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching again.